Very nice.
All right. Good afternoon, and welcome to the American Institute of Building Design's Tuesday at 2 presentation. The AIBD is a nonprofit association dedicated to the enhancement, development, and recognition of the residential and light commercial building design professional. We are building a profession one designer at a time by providing education and resources such as building designer certification, specialized BIM training, regional conferences, and today's presentation. There are these are all part of the Institute's continuous quest to provide relevant information to those who are currently practicing or interested in the building design disciplines. The first step towards taking advantage of all the opportunities available is to join our email list at aibd.org/subscribe. And for those of you who intend to submit CEUs after this program, you will receive a follow-up email, which will include a link to a digital certificate. You can simply click the certificate URL, download it, or I don't think you could just forward the email. I'll have to practice on that, figure out what the most efficient step would be, but you'll be able to download a PDF and you can forward that to info@aibd.org. Or if you're, and most of you that are attending today, if you're not already, you're going to be computer savvy by the end of this hour, at least in certain realms. Then you can use the MyCE app. And if you haven't used that before, you want to reach out to certification@aibd.org to get it set up. We already know you exist if you're a CPBD. We just got to connect you with your CE app. And once you do that, you can upload your certificates directly and be able to monitor the progress of their approval along the way. So, see, somebody says, hello, is this audio only? It is not audio only. It can be, but we're going to have a lot for you to see. So if you can get your video to work, then we are going to hopefully surprise you with some really pretty images. But first, I want to introduce Steve Azanian. He goes by Oz. He's the co-founder of Hauska. I met him through Nick Smith, who is one of our CPBDs, one of the other co-founders. I don't know how many co-founders there are. But yeah, Steve and Oz and I, a few weeks ago, had a conversation that led to our inviting you to listen in on the continuation of that conversation about how to transform your customer experience. And many of us, I know me in particular, most of my career was spent creating basically just working drawings for production builders. And when I started entering into the custom realm, I was at that entry level where all I did was, for the client, I would produce what they needed to get a building permit. And in most cases, nothing more. If it came to the point where I was required, and a lot of the homeowners associations that had architectural review boards, some of the communities that had architectural review boards, they started to ask for 3D renderings and then color renderings. And that was something that I had to look for somebody that was more talented than I was to subcontract that to or outsource. So that's kind of how this conversation started. And Oz has been a part. Hauska just launched their Design Pro 4 weeks ago, something like that, not long ago. And he's gotten a lot of feedback. And I'm excited about hearing what some of that feedback has been and how many of the users of Hauska have started adopting AI to transform that client experience. So that's the end of the introduction. Where do you want to go from here, Oz?
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Steve. And first I wanted to say thanks for having me on. It's awesome to be here with actually a lot of people also in the webinar. So we have industry leaders. Steve is both the executive director of AIBD and an award-winning designer. I know there's a few also in our webinar audience, and it's pleased to have the I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to have ideally what will be a discussion with you all around exploring AI tools and how they can help designers in their, I'll call them the market, sell, and serve workflows. I will start, hopefully, my presentation, which will go on screen. And whoops, see if I can get this going without clicking all the way through. Yes. And so today, just really taking it from where Steve was mentioning, as part of the session description as we talked, we were really exploring kind of the evolution of designers' tools and how they were using them. And as part of the discussion, we had an extension of the discussion that we started at the AIBD industry event at Myrtle Beach. And as we were talking about it, I was observing how as the technology innovation and adoption rates continue to accelerate, consumers' buying expectations are also changing substantially. Right, you have consumers that are living in the world of 3D and social media and distraction and extremely rich technology options at their fingertips. And yet designers are facing an environment where tools take many months to learn, and so they're often left behind. They either have to outsource, which might limit their ability to deliver rich experiences, or it is incredibly time consuming and difficult to provide and really engaging experiences. So as we say, as a result, consumers are increasingly perceiving the designers are providing a commodity focused on technical documents that really should be procured at the lowest possible price because they're just a necessary expense on the path towards approval and construction of their dream home, right? Which is one of the end results, or a remodeled bathroom or kitchen, etc. So this divergence between designers' outputs and consumers' expectation is increasing, and there's an increasing tension in the industry because of that. So now there are easy to learn AI-based tools to help enable designers transform those client experiences. We'll talk about those. And we'll talk about using these tools to elevate the market, sell, and serve functions, right? So when we talk about how professional services, industries, and people go to market, part of my background is being a partner at a large management consulting firm called Accenture, and we break things down into consultant speak and consultant formats, and the what are known as the market, sell, and serve functions are the primary ways that professionals basically go about their jobs and their businesses in order to basically attract customers, sell to them, and serve to them. Right, so certainly in the building design industry, there's loads of that going on. Right, and we hope to have some guest designers here today to talk about how they're using AI and our design pro tool that Steve mentioned to change their workflow and elevate their clients' experiences. Excuse me. So let's talk about the session format. So what we'll do is we'll follow a pattern of presentation, discussion, if people have questions, and then hands-on training via hopefully your internet connected device. I know you all have one or you couldn't be attending this webinar. So what we'll do is we'll go through the basics of AI, as that is the primary technology tool that we will be using and discussing today. We'll talk about some pretty simple examples for how you can use the AI tools to help in your market and sell functions. things like generating perhaps a business logo, outbound emails, personalized email responses, and then really building on some of the past webinars we've done in the past. I built a little bit more of a robust AI-driven personalized email response tool. So we'll take everybody through that, and at the end of that topic, hopefully everybody will have a tool that is a very practical and useful item in your tool belt. And then we'll discuss how designers are using AI-generated visuals, also known as renders, in their workflows. And then just like the other topics, we'll go through some training in how to produce your own AI-generated visuals. So that's the plan, session, and topics. So let's talk about the chatbots. And most people have heard of AI chatbots, and they are basically an application, or as tech people say, a front end that allows humans to interact with large language models, or LLMs. And when we talk about AI, there are a lot of different areas of AI and different types of applications of AI. But the really the recent advent of really advancements in large language models is what has really caught everyone's attentions. And so we will use the chatbots to help across the market, sell, and serve functions that I described. So there are a few basic things I want to go over before we jump into that. First is the term called prompting. And prompting is probably going to become sort of one of the words in our lexicon going forward. Sort of just like we've incorporated, we've practically, instead of using, have you searched the internet, oftentimes now we say, have you Googled it? And so, right, understanding prompt and prompting is probably going to become part of that lexicon. So it's creating and refining inputs to guide AI large language model responses. So it's fairly natural language, and it's getting more natural language. And if you are using some of these chatbots on your phone, you can actually, you can turn on your microphone and talk to your chatbot. Clear prompts help AI understand the context and desired output better, right? Which leads to more accurate and relevant responses. However, this leads us to hallucinations. Okay, I'll skip the joke on that. The text is really, so large language models, they can generate incorrect, factually incorrect, and nonsensical responses, including fabrications and contradictory statements. And we use the term fabrication because fabrication is often, right, it's a synonym for a lie. I don't think that LLM is actually, purposefully lying to us. And that's why the word hallucination is so well. It can come up with responses that they're just made up. You just have no idea where it came from. So the point there is they do occur, and they occur because of limitations in the training data that used to establish or train the large language models. And there are still some inherent model limitations in understanding context and maintaining logical consistency. So simplifying that is essentially at the bottom line under the LLMs, it's still ran by computers. Computers understand, kind of zeros and ones in algorithms. And so what we're saying is these algorithms are, despite the fact that they are pretty incredibly advanced, they're still working on them. And while they work on them and get them better, the hallucination rates will decrease, but probably likely only decrease. And I don't see them going away, at least in the next few years. So there are a bunch of large language model chatbots out there, and all the large tech, everyone in the tech industry, all the large players are all competing. So one of the biggest ones out there, ChatGPT, also known as OpenAI. Right there are Mistral is a European provider, right? Claude and Google, we all know that name. Bard, Microsoft is in there with Bing Chat. There's one here called Perplexity.AI, which we're kind of biased on that right now at Hauska. There's lots of specific use applications that leverage large language models. And what I will do now is I will start to move towards demonstrating those. So somewhere here, let's make sure this is just, I'm having a hard time seeing my webinar screen. There we go. Okay, so in order to navigate, I will head over to another browser, right? So I've already come over and I'll type in Perplexity AI, right? So I've already increased the size of this screen a couple of times. I'll do it a little bit more here. And so it's going to be a little strange because I'm going to be flipping between screens a little bit, but let's put Perplexity to the test. I have a couple of initial prompts. So I'm going to ask Perplexity about the IBC requirements for stairways and handrails. And it's going to ask me, do I want the commercial or residential? Let's do residential. So the nice thing about Perplexity is it cites all its sources. So if you're worried about hallucinations in the answers, as it gives you the answers, it cites the sources that it is found for those answers. So it's easy to go back and check and confirm the validity of what your chatbot or your AI application is telling you. So it's saying minimum stairway width is 36 inches, can be reduced to 32, right? I won't read all of it. I'll scroll down, right? It's pretty darn good. Gives all about it, right? And if I wanted to, I can go ahead and check any one of these sources. So I can ask all kinds of questions. So I have become a little bit of an aficionado of Steve's posts in AIBD. So we can, and oftentimes there are things about historical information. So I'll ask about interesting architectural facts and history occurring on this day. Let's see. On May 7th. Oh, interesting. The Hagia Sophia in Istanbul collapsed. I'd really like to see that building. So in 1697, Stockholm's medieval royal castle was destroyed by fire. So we get it, right? So if you're bored, instead of spending time on social media, you can ask your chatbot questions about design history. Okay, moving right along. Let's get to something a little bit more complex and useful. So it is certainly useful to be able to look up IBC requirements and other items. But let's get into the market, sell, and serve. So a couple of functions within right, the market functions in the industry include things like, perhaps if you don't have a business logo yet, you might want to generate one. So in order to do this next level of a simple example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some very basic positioning of the business, right? So first it's, what are the simple positioning elements? And I created a prompt here that if you want to do a little bit more research on this and get a little bit more detailed around that, you can do this as a later exercise. So just use that prompt in your chatbot. What are the elements to business positioning? You can try it in a couple of different chatbots and see what answers you get back. But what I will say is these items right below that, obviously what your name is, what your offer is, the tone that you want to interact with your customers, who you're targeting, and the benefits that you're delivering are all basic elements of positioning in the marketing function. So I've created the example. So for our example, we will assume the name Hauska Design, and we are a custom home and remodel designer, and that's what we do. You can see the various components of this example. So what I did is I just copied all of this items in the example. I'm going to switch over to my chat bot. I'll just start a new thread. And in Perplexity, what I like to do in the focus area is, since I'm working on mostly writing, I'm going to select writing. I'm going to paste in my positioning elements. Just for my own edification, if I hold down Shift and hit Enter, I'm going to create some space between the positioning and my cursor. I'm going to go back to my presentation and create the prompt that I want. So what I want is a business logo, right? Using the business name, offer, tone, target market, and benefit. So I'm going to head right over and type those in. And let Perplexity go to work. So it's immediately asking me questions. Well, I want an icon-based logo. It's thinking about it. Now it's giving me the answer. So all the chatbots initially, what they do is they go through an analysis of the type of logo that they think is relevant for what you asked for. So here it is doing that. And then to actually see what the logo might look like, I just head over to the side here to generate the image. And then there's multiple different styles. We'll try a couple. We'll start with a photograph type. We'll see how quickly Perplexity drives the image generation. And I'll just make this a little bit bigger. So you can say this is the example it came up with. So just as a warning, in what's known as text or text prompt to image generation, large language models, as they generate the images, they are terrible spellers, just awful. So don't be surprised if you see lots of spelling errors in the images. So here's another one, Hauska. Right, so oftentimes what we will do is, if we see an image that we really like, we'll drop it into a very simple, image editing tool, even as simple as like Microsoft Paint or Canva. Canva is another very simple to use and easy. Some people use Adobe tools, and we will cut out the misspellings and type those in. So let's try perhaps a diagram version. See what we get. So that just actually looks like a design. And now we have 2Ks in Hauska. So we'll do one more. We'll go through the gambit. Oh, that one looks kind of interesting as well. So just an example, a pretty simple tool. So for all of these different logos you see on the screen, I probably ran over the course of a day. I just had a browser off to the side, And every time it came back with, the chatbot came back with a logo, I asked it to just generate another logo. And so these are, you see, these are the ones that I kind of found interesting. So you can try the same thing as well. So here's another potentially interesting tool for you. It's very simple, which is to generate an email, also using those parameters that generates business opportunities. So let's see how Perplexity does with that. So I'm going to skip my email. Hopefully you can read this subject, bring your dream home to life with Hauska Design's certified expertise. We'll get into this. So you can see it's pretty good, but I think it's kind of wordy. People don't have time to read that long of an email. Let's try and say, make that more concise. See if you can understand that. And pretty good. It's asking, hey, which part of it would you like more concise? Just all of it. You tell me. So here we go. Nice, short and sweet. So I could easily cut and paste this into an email tool or into a document. And perhaps I could use my own logo or one of the logos I just generated with a little bit more of an overall experience for your business. And it's pretty nice. Transform your living space with Hauska Design certified expertise in custom home and remodel projects. Our certified professional building design professionals are committed to bringing your unique vision to life with innovative design solutions and uncompromising quality. Okay, so pretty good. So I will refer back to this issue about hallucinations a couple of times, saying you really need to proofread all of the work that comes out of the chatbot before simply using it. And you might even just use it as a first draft. So this is a pretty darn good first draft. It gives a nice layout, short and sweet, and this is an interesting hallucination. I'm not sure where it came up with. Visit www.hauskadesign.com. I'm afraid to click on that. It's a good idea if you have a website to put this in. I'm not sure that I would put it in as a PS. Right, so very interesting. So I could also just say, generate another email. Oh, I don't like that one. Let's try another one. So same purpose. Pretty good. Again, I could make this more concise. I could do word swaps, a variety of things. So pretty useful tool, especially if you ever have writer's block, which I certainly occasionally do. So let's move along. So the next example, which is also pretty simple, just gives another potential use for the AI tool in inbound email responses. So the example is, shoot, you broke your leg and finger and had to extend your vacation by a week. Upon returning to your business, you receive this email. What to do? Subject, urgent, unacceptably late design. Dear Hauska Design professionals, I'm writing to express my profound dissatisfaction with how late the design is for my proposed house. At this rate, I don't see how I'll be able to move in by December of 2025. What are you going to do about this? So probably your heart might be beating a little bit faster than typical. And so one of the possible responses is let's just see what the chat bot suggests. So I'm going to basically copy the entire email, probably out of your email tool and not out of a presentation. I will, let me just start a new chat. I'll just go ahead and, again, paste that into the prompt space of my tool. And I'm going to go ahead and use this prompt. How should I respond to this email in a respectable manner? So instead of writing a response while my heart rate is up, I'll let the chatbot decide. So once again, Perplexity is asking me for a little bit more complex. You know, it asks about key points, and maybe what I'll do is I'll say, all of these seem like key points. Let's go ahead and try them all. Dear valued customer, I sincerely apologize. Right, we understand your frustration. We take full responsibility. Interesting, I could have given it context that we don't have a team. It's really just me. I'm just the designer. I did not give the chatbot the context that I had a broken leg and finger. I think it's reasonable to tell your client that there are unforeseen challenges. Right, but it gives some pretty darn good suggestions for how to respond in a professional manner. And again, very similar as well. I could say, make that more concise. And I'm not going to go through all of Perplexity's follow-up questions. So if you had access to additional resources, right? So most of you as experienced designers know how to handle it when you get behind. But if you just want context for a response, a simple one, this is a simple way to do it. Again, proofread, get to objectivity, and we will get to later on perhaps what might be much more contextual, personalized responses. But again, it's another solid application of using the AI tool to help in your workflow. I have, whoops, sorry. I had that as cell, but that's probably more on the serve. It's probably more on the serve function. Okay, so next level. So I've done this webinar a couple of times now, and there's been some appropriate observations that those are very simple examples. And so maybe could we build something that is a little bit more robust, particularly an email response. So what I've done is I've created a little bit more of a useful and semi-complex tool. So essentially what we're going to do is go through the process of a more real life scenario, assuming that you use your own business email account, your own client calendar, right? Go through again the process of business parameters, looking at test emails for making sure that our tool works properly, setting up the chat bot, getting it all together, and seeing if the thing works. Okay, so let's jump into it. So if you don't already have your own business email and calendar, it's actually pretty straightforward to get this set up, right? So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to navigate into a new browser tab, right? So if you wanted a new email and you're using the Google tools, right, it's pretty easy just to head over to this function. And this is, of course, going to pull up my email, but this function itself as you can see on what I'm going to do on the screen, the steps. So if I logged out of my email, which maybe I should do next time for our example, right? It's pretty easy to navigate into that tool and say, hey, I don't want to use the existing one. I want to create an account, right? You simply pick it, adjust the settings, secure your account, right? So I don't think you all need a lot of remedial steps through how to set up a business email. And if you do, you'll see later in this presentation how to join the Hauska Discord. If you have any questions or follow-ups regarding this presentation, if you join us in our Discord, we'll be happy to address them, right? So setting up your own business calendar, also pretty straightforward. Head over to a new tab, navigate into the calendar function, and now you can see I'm semi-busy, right? So you go into create and an appointment schedule, right? And this is the function that gets you on your way, right? And again, I won't take you through all of this, but as part of this, it creates a link for you to share with others. And that's what you're going to want to use for this exercise, right? So once you have your business inbox set up with your email and your business calendar, then you're ready for the next steps, which is establishing business parameters as context for the large language model, right? So in this example or this exercise, we're establishing the name of your business, your name as a designer. In this case, I'm going to give the large language model context that I'm running a solo proprietorship to try and essentially tell it, don't suggest that I have a team of professionals working on this. Right, again, my tone. And so the colors here are, the yellow is the outline and the white is what I'm filling in, right? So here's the tone I'm trying to portray, what my regular working hours are, perhaps my general base fees, and since I specialize perhaps in house plans and decks, I'm going to put those in, right, along with my specializations, my geographic work area. I'm just using the same example of an AIBD webinar we did with the Oklahoma chapter. And from the prior exercise, what my calendar link is. You could also give it the email link, but given that this tool is to respond to business emails, presumably your clients or prospects already know your business email. So establish your business parameters, identify test emails that you want to use this tool with. So I've typed a few in here into the presentation, right? But ideally, you already have multiple inquiry emails for your business that you can use. And they might be off in a saved off folder somewhere in your email box. If not, you can use some version of these. I have multiple sample inquiry emails that might come from prospects. So people who are interested in your work. Once you have those either generated or created, you can use mine. Hopefully you already have some of yours. Then you need to work on your prompt crafting, right? So what you can do is you can try a few different ideas. So I've provided several ideas for you. One is very simple. Respond to this lead email asking about my business. Be optimistic and solution oriented. If they need to talk to me, please provide my calendar link. The second one is a little bit more complex. And in a prior webinar, we had a lot of discussion around should should we basically suggest that a client or a prospect look elsewhere if they're asking for a house design that does not, where really they have an unrealistic budget? They're asking for a house design for 2 grand, for 2,000. And some people said, man, I really don't want to spend my time dealing with those people. And I empathize with that response as well. Another possible way to think about it that came out in the discussion is, what I really want to do is I want to engage in all prospects, because these people are both people that might be a future client, and they may also, if they have a good interaction with me, they may be a future reference. Um, and if they like the way that I helped them, they might spread the word around my business, even though I may not be the ultimate person to help them with this design. So these are the types of things that you want to think about as you craft your prompts, right? Because those are going to be reflective of the type of business that you conduct. Ultimately, prompt number 3 here is what I'm thinking right now is a pretty good way to go, which is, hey, let's respond to this email asking about my business. Be optimistic and solution oriented. If they ask to talk to me, provide my calendar link. Let them know I'm a poor fit if they ask for work outside my geographic work area, and let them know if their budget is low and suggest options. Don't mention lowering my price. So we'll try this. And now we're getting into assemble and test your prompt. Okay, so we've done all this preparation. How are we going to put it to work? First, paste in your business parameters. So here's what I've done to sort of make it easy to use this at home or in your business office. I've pasted some of this stuff over into a Google Doc. Again, to get to Google Docs, and this will save it off in the cloud, go to a new tab, cruise over to the hash mark of Google Applications, select Docs, and you're off to the races. So I've done that over here. I've named my document, so I can just keep coming back to this time and time again. Right, so I've got my business context in there. I've already pasted my prompt in there. So, whoops. Let's go ahead and paste this into Perplexity. I'll get a new thread going. So I've got all that in. So I'm ready to go with my prompt, but now I need my email. Okay, let's go back and find one of these emails. I'll just do the first one. Right, so in this situation, you would be doing a copy paste right out of your email account. So you've already pasted in the top part. Now you paste in your email. We go ahead and execute the prompt. Again, I'm going to skip the questions because I think it should have enough context to answer them. And it says, thanks for reaching out to us. We appreciate your interest in our services. Right, it starts to raise the issue of budget and said, hey, our house plans start at 5,000. I understand your budget is set at 3,000. This may not allow for the comprehensive design services required for a 3-bed, 2-bath house. Right, if you have flexibility in your budget, I'd be more than happy to schedule a consultation to discuss your project. And we can also explore ways to optimize your design to meet your needs and budget more effectively, right? So to schedule a consultation, use my calendar link. Here's where I'm available. Right, thanks for considering us. So a pretty good first draft. As I scan it, I don't see any particular issues, but again, as we've said before, there could be hallucinations. Again, if I wanted to, I could sort of create a more of a perspective here into right in the regards. I could say more about my business. I could use graphics. I could put my logo in here, perhaps that I generated. But this is pretty solid. Like, maybe I don't like this one, right? So generate another that's more concise. Once again, maybe it's too wordy. It's probably going to ask me more questions about it. And I'm just going to say, you figure it out yourself. So again, this is a lot more concise. And again, the thing to think about here is what you might want to do. Again, the context in the prior conversation is, hey, let's just talk about it. So prospecting or looking for work is something that all businesses do. I'm sure most of you out in the audience do that. And essentially, even though this doesn't really look like a prospect that is in the strike zone of what you're looking for, you might consider that they are in the ballpark. And again, word of mouth is important. And actually referring prospects to other designers that you work with in other parts of the country is something that you like to do. And if you can be solution oriented for this prospect, then they might be very happy to do word of mouth marketing for you. They might reconsider their budget, right? Especially when you talk about the benefits of engaging with a certified building professional and the value that you bring to the table, and some discussion around generally what the market is like. They could change their mind. So this is the tool, right? And what we do is we say, based on our experience, so I think we've had a pretty good experience, but it's like, okay, let's go back and try a different email. So let's just rewind. So I'm going to reset my chatbot. I'm going to go back to my pre-constructed business context and prompt. This could be the next day, right? I've saved this document off so you can just use it again and again, over and over. Head back in, paste it back into the chatbot, go back in. Here's my next example. Let's fire it up. See how we're doing. And again, I think this is, if you happen to use Perplexity, right, it is oftentimes ask follow-ups, especially when it says Pro Search. So I pay $20 a month for all of Perplexity's advanced features. And I just switched from ChatGPT or OpenAI. There's lots of them. I see one from Garrett, right? He's using Copilot as well. So there's lots of them. And I'm sort of trying out a lot of them. So I just canceled my $20 subscription over in ChatGPT. I transferred it over to Perplexity. I expect, a month or two from now, I could either go back to ChatGPT or to a new tool. So in this case, rather than spending time answering Perplexity's quizzes, I'm going to take another run at it. Right, so I'm going to suggest something. I'm going to kind of preview some of the discussion to come. Again, this is really good. I'd be delighted to help you and meet with you. Right, the chatbot is showing enthusiasm, right, which is helpful to engage with your prospects. Right, again, provides the context for the meeting. One of the things you could ask them is, particularly immediately, so you could ask them if they have a picture of an existing house they're interested in. You could ask them if they have an initial design sketch that they're interested in. Any other context would be perhaps useful for them to prepare, especially before meeting with you. because that will just make your conversation a lot more productive. And as we'll see later on, some designers are starting to already gather this information in advance and using the visualization AI tool that we'll go over later to actually use that as part of their selling process. Saying, "Oh, right, I get that. That looks like a cool picture, nice design option," and they'll use an AI tool to come back with right several possibilities of what they might be interested in and schedule time with them. And again, you are engaging them in a very interactive session. Um, People say selling is a conversation and a process. It's not an event. And so the more that you can establish rapport and a relationship with your prospects, ideally, the more successful that sales cycle will be. But this is still a fairly simple example. It's much more complex than the first one we did, right? And you can continue to just say, okay, well, let's go ahead and rewrite this. Maybe I want to see what it looks like in a different model. Maybe I'll use GPT Turbo. Now let's use a new one. Let's use Claude 3 Sonnet. I will say that was very speedy. Thanks for reaching out. Delighted to hear about your plans. Creating open light-filled spaces with seamless indoor living space is one of my specialties. Right, I like your vision. So all pretty good. Again, did we say 6,000 or 5,000? We did say 6,000. So they got the number right. Always check the numbers that come out of your chatbots. Just like they're terrible at spelling and graphics, oftentimes they get confused by numbers and math. So always check that out. So this is really nice. Talks about the design process. That is probably something that you don't want the chatbot figuring out for you. It could certainly give you ideas, but I'm sure most of you as professionals have an established process already that you can go ahead and paste in. Right, so pretty darn good. Hopefully a pretty useful tool. So the last points I'll leave you with are, it's a very iterative process, right? So if you aren't getting out quite what you want, go back to the business parameters and revise those. You might want to add one or two to help provide additional context for the large language model. You might want to revise a couple that are already in there and play with it and see what answers you get. Similarly, same with the prompt. Try slightly different prompts. And as you iterate through this, right, go back, keep saving these off so that you have it for the next time, right? And it's iterative. And every once in a while, as this becomes very good, you'll get an email that sort of trips up where you were before. Again, it's iterative. Change your business parameters, adjust the prompt, run it, see how it works. So hopefully this can really add some productivity. And obviously, as you'll notice, these are very personalized responses. So it should save you ideally several minutes per email rather than each one from scratch. And particularly if you have templates for part of that email filled out already, things like, design process, but, high fives, we got through it. So moving on. The next step is what we want to do is talk about more on the serve side of the process, how designers are using Hauska's Design Pro visualization tool in their workflows. And the setup for this is this. Imagine a new paradigm where AI can actually help you as a tool in your workflows. And what if visuals were $2 to $5 instead of, if you outsource them, roughly 200 to 500. Right, there was a survey in one of the Facebook communities asking people how much they pay for outsourced renders, and the most common response was 200 to 500. And I know it varies a ton. So some people employ full-time visualization specialists, and so they pay less. Some people have much more complex renders that they want performed, so they pay more. Certainly in a commercial context, rendering and visuals tend to be substantially more. One of the professionals responded that they pay up to $10,000 for a rendering set for either a very high-end custom home or commercial building, right? And what if visuals took 15 minutes rather than several hours for those of you that do your own rendering, right? What if you could do these very quickly? So what I'm going to do is do kind of a brief overview of what I'm hearing. And then what I'd really like is to ask a few designers on the webinar to go through their experiences. So on the sell side, I alluded to this earlier. And for those of you at AIBD that know Gavin Nichols, he is a proponent of this area. While selling, um, as client inquiries come in, he asks similar to what I said previously. Do you have an existing design, a sketch, a photo, a Pinterest link of what you're looking for? And then he uses our Design Pool Pro tool and very quickly generates multiple visuals of what the client is looking for and saying, look, I know this might not be exactly, but these are the types of things that we can do. Let's talk about what I can do for you. And he's finding that to be incredibly engaging and a more productive outcome in the selling process. And he's saying he's getting more conversions of simple inquiries into active sales cycles and turning that into more revenue. So oftentimes designers, obviously you go through the design process in multiple phases. Many designers very early in the process try and create an initial elevation view to confirm direction with the client. That initial elevation view, of course, is to the designer does not really look like a technical document because that's what we work with all the time. But to the client, it does look like a technical document. And so adding visualizations, maybe a few, along with that technical document, right, the elevation view, really is helping clients visualize what might be possible, get very excited about their dream home, and really accelerate that connection point. So that's one thing. So, and then as alternatives arise in the design process, some designers are quickly generating visuals to go with those alternatives. I know John Coyle is doing this. I know Nick, who will come up, is doing this. And I mean, really what is interesting is, and John reported this, sometimes they're able to upsell when that seemed nearly impossible. And the scenario that he described was he took on a piece of work from a client that right, was really seeing the design process as a commodity, had very low expectations, really was just looking to get something to be approved and put in the hands of a contractor. And the very first time visuals were provided for the alternatives, the client became so excited, could not wait to share the visualizations with his wife, and came back and actually picked a design alternative that resulted in it was about a $400 change order on a $4,000 design. And the client was thrilled. John was very happy that after about 20 minutes of work, was able to do a quick upsell. So that's another area. So visuals provided with a finished design, that's an obvious one to enhance the customer experience. And oftentimes, look, I know that if you're doing a document set for construction, that the exact specificity of the visuals becomes more important. And so maybe the visual becomes one of those documents and maybe it doesn't, right? We're not saying that AI is right, a fitting all components yet. Just as we've worked through examples previously here in email responses and generating emails, the tools aren't really ready to cover all situations, right? But what we're seeing here is in these types of workflows, um, we're really perhaps seeing 5 to 10 visuals from the sell through the design and delivery per project, where perhaps typically in the past it's been 1 or 2. So with that, what I'd like to do is really open it up to some of the designers out there and maybe could use some help in how to do that in the tool.
Oz, let me know who to turn the microphone and camera on for.
So if you're ready, if you could indicate in the chat here, since we don't really have a hand raise function, and I will end sharing my screen. Ted's ready to go. Awesome, Ted. Thank you very much.
Ted Hake is ready to go.
There we are. Yeah, I was waiting for the icons to come up.
Hey, Ted, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Neat little program. I don't do any computer renderings when I draw. I do use a CAD system, but I don't even do 3D CAD stuff. So it's really nice. I can take my 2-dimensional elevations and take off the line work as far as floor elevations, the text. And one I tried, I hit it the first time.
That's awesome.
I don't know how to share them with you. I don't know how to bring them on the screen here. I don't know if I can share the screen or not. Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, please.
Share the screen. Tap the screen to share. Oh, come on. There it is. So if I, well, not that one. That one I hit it the first time. I don't know how to make it bigger here. I'm sorry. To make the screen bigger. What I've been doing this is for Habitat for Humanity. They've never really had renderings of their houses or anything like that.
Nice.
So I don't know how to make the screen bigger myself. Ooh, ooh.
There
you go. A little bigger. But some of these I've done for clients.
Yeah.
And they came out, this one here, I asked for a sunny background. It came out really nice. I'm learning what to ask the program for what it wants as far as information. And I've learned through a few webinars, if I put pluses behind something, it makes it more dominant. And like say for me, I first computer rendering I've done.
That's awesome.
Worked out. I've got 30 years doing this, and I've never done a computerized rendering like that. I've printed them out and just done some colored pencils, but it works real smooth for me. And I've talked to some other people, they're like, hoorah. And some of the people, their programs do renderings, but they're using your stuff. It just seems to work out a little quicker. So I do tell people the color yellow may not be exact, or the green may not be exact. It's just kind of there. So
yeah. So what was your journey? I mean, how difficult was it to sort of go from just starting to use the tool? I mean, you mentioned one that you got, on your first try, you got one back, but that probably wasn't your initial experience.
Yeah,
I mean, how long did it
took me 4 or 5 tries to figure out what the program wanted said. And for me, like I said, I just take my elevation, move it to the side, and I save it in the format that's suggested. I thought it was a JPEG, I think is what I use. I was going to ask, because there are 2 or 3 different formats. Does one seem to work better with your program than the other as far as working with?
The formats don't matter too much. It's more just about the resolution of your input image. So if you're giving it a really low resolution input image, it's going to struggle with that.
little
Yeah.
things, the line weights, the heavier line weights seems to help it. Lighter line weights. You know, if you got brick, go ahead and show it, hatch pattern in and stuff, and it catches it, board and batten. I was impressed.
Nice. Yeah, in a few minutes, Sam will go through the tool itself and what kind of inputs work really well and which ones don't. So it sounds like it takes you about maybe 15 minutes to generate a visual that you're happy with.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes between setting up the file that it needs, opening it up, and there I go.
Awesome.
And it seems to work fine for me. I'm a basic person, and away we go.
Wow. And so those were just a question from Greg Harper. So you just took a 2D elevation and generated those pics.
Yes, those were 2D. Like I say, I'm not a computer person, obviously, and I don't know how to make them bigger for everyone to see.
Ted, I'm not buying that. I'll bet you're already doing your own AI-generated email responses, and I do see you in Discord. And anybody that joins Discord is at least somewhat of a computer person. Awesome. We're going to keep working with you to get you there.
Okay.
I have an example.
Awesome.
I don't know if he's still on screen, but Mike Battaglia, another member in Ohio. Let me share my screen here.
Yeah, please.
Mike and I are designosauruses. We're doing the old
Yeah,
way.
he's a designosaurus. He still draws by hand. So he sent me an elevation that had a ton of detail, a ton of dimensions and notations and stuff like that. And you can see down here, there's a couple notations that I forgot to erase, but I went through and erased them and then touched up the lines a little bit. And this is what I gave Hauska or Design Pro. And then in one try, I asked it for just earth tones. This is what it came out. Now it misunderstood that window element and interpreted it as a garage door. But I think that, you know, had I gone in and provided a little bit of shading, then maybe it would have interpreted it better. Or if the drawing, like if you use SketchUp or use, what is it called, wire mode in some of your CAD programs, and just give it a little bit of a 3D element. But
and even if you use a bigger frame around your photo, it generates the house a little better too, because I think it gives it some space from the edge. But yeah, that's the elevations I'm doing. It seems to come out nice.
Yeah, it does a great job. If you give it some shading, as well as the line weight is really huge. So if you can bolden up those lines, as Ted was saying, that makes a huge difference because it's able to recognize those and interpret those images a little bit better.
You know, one of the things as I've worked with it over the course of the last year or 9 months, however long we've had it, is really just finding out where it fits. It kind of reminds me of when I was trying to go from using a pen and paper when I do site visits to like transitioning into an iPad. It took a minute to see what the use case was for it and get used to it. But it, you know, definitely has its place in your tech stack. Like I'll use it for, you know, just as Steve said, just early design options. You know, get an elevation view going, spit out 3 or 4 different design options for them, email them over. It gives them something to chew on. It gives me a point where, you know, maybe if I'm a little bit behind during the day, but I promise somebody they'd have something tangible, you know, they could look at. It gets them something. It somewhat satisfies the client, so I can keep working on their plan or something like that. Another way I use it is for, like, here a specific example. I had a client that they had the foundation poured, they had the walls framed, but they were having second thoughts on the way they were going to frame the roof and the pictures of the roof and everything. And so in an hour, I was able to generate, I don't know, 4 or 5 different elevation views with different roof options and run those through the rendering tool and spit them out. And, and we were able to decide on one within 15 minutes of communication. And it saved me, a ton of work over the weekend, just able to get back to normal life. And they were, everything was kind of settled. So I think that's probably for me, one of the most important things is figuring out where it lies, right? Adopting a new technology is never easy necessarily, because you really kind of have to reformat the way you think about your workflows and things like that. But it can definitely save a ton of time. And even with the chatbots and things like that, that was probably the first conversation I had with a chatbot was incredible. I was like, holy cow, I'm talking to a computer, and now I lean on it so heavily for everything. Proof or grammar is not my thing. So like, I'll put it in there and make sure, help me proofread things like that. So that's what I found.
Looks like someone else showed up.
Nick, how have you felt in terms of colors? I know working with you as we're going back and forth on generations and kind of working in R&D and testing that. I know you've had clients, the tool will give back a different color than you're used to, and being able to very rapidly generate 4 or 5 different color options, and been able to sway a client towards a different color palette and actually change their mind and change the whole direction of the project in that regard. Do you feel that's another powerful component of the tool, is the different options that you can very rapidly provide in terms of color, instead of having to redraw, but maybe instead of doing like a concrete siding, doing like a stucco siding, because you don't have to redraw that necessarily, or instead of a wood siding, more of like a metal siding.
Right. And, I think it really comes down to understanding what the tool is and using the right tool for the right job. Right. I mean, some use cases require a sledgehammer and others require a finish hammer. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's really useful for that. Is here's the basic structure of your house. It with our tool, it holds the line integrity, so it doesn't mess with that, and you're just able to show them facade options. And so they can see an array of different options. It's visual right in front of them. Pick one. From there, that's where once they find one they like, and like, oh, I want it 2 shades lighter, that's where the difficulty comes in. And that's what we're developing and we're working toward. But the way it sits right now, it's an amazing kind of an ideation tool for different exteriors.
Great. Looking at some questions here.
Let's go to Steve. Steve Shard. I like the Steves in the audience.
There we go. I'm here.
Awesome. How's it going today?
Kind of hectic here. I got on about 15 minutes late, so I'm kind of coming into the ball game at the end of the first quarter.
I believe it's recorded, so catch up.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this has been recorded so I can go back and review everything and get up to speed with all you guys. Then I understand what's going on. I don't know whether this has anything to do with programming or drawing or what, but I'm in the John Henry category with Mike Taglia. I've known both guys for many years and worked with John on a lot of projects, and I believe that all drawing should be done by hand. They give it more personal opinion, indication of what's going to be there. If I could display the drawings that I've done, they look realistic, but they convey the design. They don't look like they're manufactured. It's like a manufactured home. Anybody can live in a double wide, but we all studied here in Florida, the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art, for 4 years. And we learned how to draw classically and how to design. And, anybody can put 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and a 2-car garage together, and you've got a cookie cutter house, and I can't stand that.
Right.
And yet that, if you want that, go to a draftsman. They'll do it for $500. I'm not going to do that. I put together a package that I present to clients based on what I've had experience doing for 45 years. And, so I just, when you start talking about programs, and you've got this thing called, I know what SketchUp is. I've used that. I'm not fit.
So Steve, let me give you a little bit of context and then we'll move on. So we started our discussion today with talking about how potentially to use some of the new technologies coming onto the market, AI, et cetera, to sort of elevate or change workflows for how they've been doing, and ideally to enhance your client experiences. And then we basically have gone through the process of showing how to use AI and AI tools to help designers get to more productive and ideally more engaging experiences with their clients. So there's been various tools that we've talked about, which, you know, if you've come in sort of part way, you've made the obvious and astute observation, wow, there's a lot of different tools. So yes, that's true. So now we've gone through, right? We've gone through emails, we've gone through business logo generators, a variety of things. Right now we're talking about the renders or visualizations of the design documents. And it's just a minute here. Sam is going to show actually how to use that tool. So that's
Yeah,
the context.
Oz, let me segue into that, because here's one more example of me playing with Hauska. And this was somebody in the chat box asked the question about, so all I have to do is take a screenshot from SketchUp. And this is what I did for a 4-unit townhouse building. And I asked Hauska to put it in Tuscany. And here's what I got. And again, this was just one shot. I play with it a little bit. I can fix the little window issue here and the little gable there, or throw it in Photoshop if it doesn't work out for me. But I was amazed. To me, this is close enough that I can go ahead then and offer these plans for sale online.
I like that, Steve. The only thing is, what I would do is I would take, if somebody could create a wireframe for that, and I put it on the drawing table and put a sheet of vellum on top of that, and then I'll render it up so that it looks realistic and it looks hand-drawn, and I'll put the grass and the trees and the shrubs and all of that, and I'll put all of that in there, and it'll look realistic. And it looks like it was designed by somebody, not mechanically done. I know a lot of people who have come to me wanting to do CAD, and they show me their CAD drawings from school, but they don't know what they're drawing. Do you know what a rebar is? No. Do you know what a hurricane clip is? No. They're specifying it, but they don't know what they're doing. They're mechanics. They're mechanical. You know, they don't have the design experience, and that was what I was trying to teach them. And I had 3-4 very good students that went on to go to work for major architects. And you know, so I would like to have kept them. You know, I want realism, and I don't see realism in any mechanically drawn set of plans. You know, my plans are going to be designed for what the client wants.
Yep.
And that's, you know, it's, if they're not happy, I'm not happy. You know, if Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah. So here's my suggestion. So we've heard from multiple different designers about perspectives and using AI generated visuals. Again, it's each designer has their own approach and different applications, and obviously different workflows based on if you're simply doing the design versus if you're doing design through approval, design through construction. So you might do different things at different points. You might do something different in the selling phase and marketing phase than you do in the serve phase. I think Steve has brought up many good points about kind of perception of, you know, many people out there. So just like the previous examples we've gone through, we've sort of gone through the discussion component. And now what we'd like to do is, what I'd like to ask is for Sam to show you kind of how to use this tool, it'll be a pretty quick run through. All right, you ready for that, Sam?
Yep. Yeah,
All right.
can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. One moment. Thank you, Steve, for handing it off. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I'm really excited to showcase our Design Pro tool with you all today. So to get started, it's really, really simple. All you have to do is visit www.Hauska.AI. Click Get Started in the upper right corner, enter your phone number, complete the registration fields, design, then select Design Pro. So we're going to do that now. So we'll start by entering in www.Hauska.AI. You'll be greeted with this page, and we have our Design Pro bundle demo on the right here. And you'll go ahead and you'll click Get Started to be brought to our application. You'll enter in your phone number and click Start Building with Hauska. You'll get a text message from us with your verification PIN. You'll enter that verification PIN and click Login. And we went for a phone login. It makes it really easy to manage. You don't have to enter in a password or anything like that. So all you have to do is just have a phone number and you're able to access our tool. I'm already registered, so I didn't get greeted with the registration page, but we're just going to ask you a couple questions like your name, your email, and what profession you're in. And then you'll submit that and you'll be able to get started from there. So next you're going to click on Design right here, and then you'll click on Design Pro. So before we get started with any renderings, I want to show you some input images because we found that these are the most important part to rendering with Hauska. So a great input image is one that has the design taking up the majority of the image. This is if you're really focusing on the design elements and the structure of the building. The more white space that you leave around the building, the more that AI is going to fill in with different objects or landscaping, stuff like that. So the closer in you are, the more specific it'll get and hold true to those lines. Another really big important part of the input images is the gradient, citing for guidance, as well as the lines. So for example, you can see here the really strong lines for the trim, the lines in here for the metal siding, the lines for the pillars, all those stuff, it needs to be bold. And the more bold you make it, the more the AI will pick up on it. It'll just really help guide that artificial intelligence as we're rendering this out. Another big piece is the gradient siding. So you can see here on the right, we want black metal siding. So we're going to make that a much darker gradient. We want cement siding over here to the left, and that'll be a lighter gradient. And maybe we'll just have it fill in with something else underneath the overhang here. And that'll be a really light gradient, just to kind of show it the different colors of the house. Because obviously it struggles to understand where on the house you want a specific color. So these gradients really help it out. So here's another really good example of this. If you want a more monotone house, you don't need to have those gradients in there, but you can see the different lines that we have for the board and batten, the horizontal siding, the porch here. As you can see, this design is taking up the majority of the image. So as you're going in and you're taking your screenshot, make sure that you're capturing the entirety of the design and that the design is in the center of your image. Here's another one that we have here. So you can see just more different gradients with the design. And over here we have some stone. So we put in textures for that as well. So just making sure, like I was saying, that all the different siding elements have the textures specified in your elevation view, and you're incorporating gradients into your elevation view. And here's one more before we jump into rendering. So this one is a little bit more zoomed out to incorporate some driveway elements and then fill in a little bit more when it comes to the landscaping. So I'm going to go back to our Design Pro tool. Today we're going to be focusing on exterior. However, we do interior and exterior elevation views. So we'll start with exterior. I'm going to be using the modern house that I was showing earlier. So we go back. I'm using this image. And the biggest thing with prompting, so as Steve was talking about prompting with the large language models, prompting with our tool is the same. You want to start simple, identifying the key elements that you want in your elevation view. So we'll start with a simple prompt, like cement siding, black metal siding, and a lawn. So starting super simple here, and just to kind of get a baseline to see how the model performs. So we'll render that out. Renders typically take about a minute, depending on our network volume and how many people we have on. As the more people join, we will be scaling things up to ensure that your render comes out in less than a minute. As you can see, so initially it did a really solid job of capturing the different elements that we want in our finished render. So as you can see, we got the black metal siding, we got the cement siding, and we have our lawn. Next portion of the rendering process is to get more specific with the different elements that you want. Like for example, if it hadn't given me a black metal siding and instead gave me like a wood siding, you can use what we call prompt emphasis to place emphasis around a particular design element. So for the black metal siding, I'm going to go in, I'm going to put it in parentheses and add a plus. That'll make sure that it's incorporating that in every single design, or at least taking that into a greater consideration. But it got the black trim here really well, so I didn't have to prompt for that. It just recognized that off the gradient. It got our lawn in, so I'm happy about that, and it got our cement siding. Step 4 is removal. So this is kind of after your base render. If there's something that the AI is adding in that you don't like, you're able to remove that. So an example of this is the hazy sky in this output. So I'm going to add a lot of emphasis to remove the hazy sky because it's really adding that in, and we'll render that out one more time and see how this performs. So as Steve was saying, with renders and really AI in general, it's an iterative process. It's very rare to get it right on the first try, and it very often takes 4 to 5, sometimes 10 tries to get exactly what you want. So this did a really good job. Didn't quite capture that I didn't want the hazy sky here. So I'm going to, in addition, add what I do want in the custom. So maybe I want evening glow to tell it, okay, I want kind of a sunset sky, just giving it some direction to go off of, and we'll render that out. And again, this can take about a minute. So we got our evening glow, but as you can see, we also got some snow in here and a weird pool. So this is a great example of what we call a hallucination. It's where it deviates off of the typical path and generates something that is completely wild, and it makes stuff up. With artificial intelligence, we're constantly working to kind of remove these and keep these to a minimum. But as you saw with our first kind of 3 renders there, we got really, really close. On our 4th one here, we're seeing a hallucination. So I'm willing to know that within the next 4 to 5 renders, we're going to get something really, really close to what we want. So these hallucinations happen. It's just the way it is with AI. But the more you use it, the less the hallucination happens. So we're going to go in and we're going to say, okay, I do not want snow and I don't want a pool under any circumstances, but it did get the evening glow really good. So I'll leave that there and we'll re-render this out. Great. So that's pretty much exactly what I wanted. Really liking how this is looking. So now that I kind of have a baseline, I'm going to add some more design elements and specifics to my initial prompt. So for this, I'm going to add that I want the render in Colorado. I want it in an alpine meadow with mountains beyond. And we'll render this out probably a couple of times to get that elevation view that I really want. And you can expand the text box here to see your entire prompt. Looking at some questions. Could Hauska give us a list of prompts that are known to be useful? Yes, I'll be jumping into that in a second. We have an entire documentation and guide to using our application, and we'll be including that as well, how to navigate to that. We'll include a link as well. And yeah, so there's a list under the documents in the program. So I'll jump into that in a second. And yes, it does use a viz token every time you render. So with our plans, we give ample amounts of tokens to make sure that within the amount that we provide, you're going to be getting 4 to 5 useful renders with your viz tokens. And we're always willing to help as well with our book a training. So I'll be jumping into how to book a training and guide you through that as well. Booking our training gives you one-on-one help and training with how to use our tool and to help you get the desired output. So if you're struggling, make sure to book a training. So next up, now that I see a render that I really like, I see the mountains beyond, I got this nice evening glow. I'm going to download that. It'll download that into the Hauska drive. While that's happening, I'll showcase where you can get to book a training. So you're in Design Pro, you'll select back, go to help, and then you can click on documentation, which will bring up our Design Pro use guidelines. So input file, do's and don'ts, some good example input images, how to prompt. So all the prompt use guidelines, how to use remove, and just some more around prompt do's and don'ts. So we have a whole guideline here, and then clicking on book a training will bring you to our book a training page. So I'll send a sample input image for you all to use. Let's put that in the chat. You can click on that Google Drive link and it'll bring up the exact image that I'm using right now. And you all can use the same prompt that I was using. So start with this prompt here and build off of it. So starting with cement siding, black metal siding, and lawn, and then adding more design components as you find the prompt that works for you and kind of what you want. Let me see here. So once you download, you're able to go into Protect in your drive, and you're able to view in your renders folder all the renders that you've done. So clicking on this, we can retrieve the file and see our render. We're actively working on upgrading our drive, and I'll get into that in a minute here. But from here, you're able to download, share, and delete your file. So downloading it, we'll just download it to your local machine. Clicking on share will give you a share link that you can send to your client. So say you want your client to check out the design and you don't want to have to send them a file. They can just view the share link, view the finished render within our application, and they don't have to go and download a bunch of different renders onto their machine, taking up space. So we give this share URL for your clients. So copying it, copies the URL, and visiting the URL will bring it up in their browser. So some important notes about just prompting, using the engine in general before I move on to the next thing. Start simple and build up your prompt. Start with the basic elements before adding more detail. Often I find in my research and development, and as I'm using the tool more and more, I often get far too granular with the prompt and confuse the AI. The more that you add into there, the harder of a time it has at recognizing all the different elements. Keep it simple. It does a pretty solid job within 4 to 5, sometimes 10 renders on grasping the concepts that you want. Focus on your input image and prompt quality. And then the most important thing is no action verbs. So for example, you can't say something like apply the black metal siding to the rest house. It doesn't understand that. So it will understand if you say strictly black metal siding. And then you could put more emphasis on this to have it understand that and apply that to more of the house instead of specifying 2 different siding types. Any questions so far? I'm going to look into the chat. One question.
Go ahead.
One question that I see is, should you always start with a black and white image, or can you use a color image? So you can use a color image. We're actively training it to do a much better job with the black and white images, but it doesn't require that. So you can use a more colored image. The difficulty with that is it has a harder time picking up on the lines of that colored image, but it'll still do a really solid job with a colored image. Just keep in mind that it's geared toward elevation views. And we will be releasing tools in the future that are more geared towards colored images and actual images that you take on the job site.
And I will say it's done a decent job of working with a photo that I've done of my own house.
Yeah, so that's always a fun way to use the tool. That was probably the first thing I did. When I finally got it up and running, was took a picture of my apartment building and put that in there. And another fun thing I do is walking around Chicago, I'll take pictures of houses that look like they could use a touch up and throw it in Design Pro to see what it does. Looking here for any other problems. Right. Another thing, so our Discord, if you see the join our Discord button at the bottom, when you sign in, this is where our community is. So if you have any questions, want to post a render, have some cool ideas, prompts that work for you, just want to interact with our community, that's a great way to get started. So you can click on join our Discord and get started in there to get involved with our community and help us build out the tool. We take a lot of suggestions from our community. So one of the bigger things is being able to integrate directly with the drive. One big thing was drive updates. People want thumbnails, the ability to move these folders around, duplicate them, that sort of thing. That'll be something that we're doing in our May release. Right, so here's more about Book Our Training. So coming soon is an upgraded V2 engine. As part of the feedback that we got from our Discord and just other members using our application, people want an emphasis on photorealism and easier prompting. So prompting that will allow you to be more explicit with your prompts instead of a comma-separated list. So for example, being able to say, I want a full modern house with black metal siding. You'll be able to specify prompts like this instead of having to use the comma separated list, which makes it a lot easier to integrate and interact with our tool. So right now you have to say black metal siding. To specify that, with our new engine at the end of May, you'll be able to get a lot more natural with the tool and kind of have an interaction with it versus having to use a comma separated list. So I'll show a quick demo of our new tool shortly. So you can see our upgraded engine on May 30th. The level of realism that we've achieved is significantly greater than our previous tool, and we're now up to about 99% line integrity. So any sort of lines that you draw into the input image, it'll pick up on. So it's far more sensitive, giving you far more control. It's also a lot more familiar with a wider range of siding types. So for example, if you're struggling with a white brick instead of a red brick, that was one issue that people were having. We've trained into our tool that you'll now be able to prompt specifically for a white brick instead of just returning a red brick when you prompt for brick. So giving the tool more training parameters and understanding a broader range of siding elements is another huge piece of our May release that'll help you all get a lot more granular with the tool. The other biggest thing is drive features. So as I was saying, thumbnails, duplicate files, moving files. We're making our drive tool a much more comprehensive application. So thank you all. Any questions? I'm looking into the chat.
I think there was one that we missed, and we could probably go back and watch the video and answer it ourselves. But every time you hit render, was there a viz token taken away?
Yes. So every single time you click render and an image returns back. So what we've done is we've added significant checks to make sure that if for whatever reason an image isn't returned back to you, your viz token will be refunded. So it'll only remove the viz token once you've received that output image back. And yes, every single time you click render and you get that output image, viz token will be deducted from your account.
And then they can move up and down from packages based on how often they actually use it.
Yes. So I'll jump into that in a second.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No worries. Great question. I'm throwing the link into the general chat again.
I got in at the starter pack level and just seeing how people use it.
Right. So you can jump into, you can view an account, subscriptions. You can view all the different subscriptions that we have. So we have monthly and yearly subscriptions. I'm currently on a freemium subscription. I've obviously given myself a ton of viz tokens here. As the admin, I have the power to do so. But if I wanted to move up to starter, for example, and get 50 viz tokens, all I'd have to do is click on subscribe, and then it'll take me to the Stripe checkout to complete my payment processing. As soon as that's done, you'll instantly be moved to your starter subscription. You'll be awarded 50 viz tokens, and you'll get 5 gigabytes of storage in your drive. The biggest thing with yearly is that you're locking in a year's worth of updates. So as we release things in May and July with all our future roadmap items, you're locking in that for all those releases, you'll have access to them and you'll have the viz tokens to interact with them as well. And that goes up to starter, essential, professional, and then premium. Premium being our highest option. You can use the AIBD code, which I'll show in a second here, to save 63%. So it'll be $707 total for a full year. Are the freemium tokens 15 per month or 15 total forever? 15 per month. We're exploring the idea of rewarding 15 tokens as we do releases to make sure that you'll be able to interact with our new engines. So that'd be a way to, if you...
So right now it's 15 total forever. And then so once you use them, they're gone. And as Sam says, we're exploring. As we come up with new releases, we're going to want to try and lure you back to try it again. So we will likely reload your freemium account with at least some tokens periodically. We're sorting that out. We're a very new company. So a lot of this is we are figuring it out as we go.
Right. So as I was saying, our premium gets you 6,000 viz tokens yearly. You get 20 gigabytes of storage, and the AIBD code saves you 63%, which will be 707 total. So our AIBD code is AIBD63. It's an exclusive Hauska discount. And thank you all for joining.
Uh-oh. I think Sam cut off. So thank you all for joining. If you enjoyed this session, we would love a shout out on social media. Just say anything and tag us at Hauska. And really want to say thank you to the designers who had comments. Ted actually did some prep work and had some designs ready. Steve as well really showed and showcased his work, and really means a lot to us to see all the designers using our product and interacting with us in Discord and helping us get the word out.
You cut out for a little bit. What was that final thought that you just said?
Watch the recording.
Yeah.
First you cut out and then I cut out.
Both of us.
I think Steve had something. Too many Steves.
Remember, you can meet the Hauska team live in San Antonio the last week of July at the Design and Build Conference. Sign up at aibd.org/conferences. They are sponsoring one of the lunch and learns that usually we reserve an hour to an hour and a half for lunch and learns. I think the one that we're going to have in San Antonio is going to be like 2 to 2.5 hours. So bring your laptop, bring your tablets. We'll stretch some cords so that everybody can plug into power, and we're going to have fun.
Yeah, we'd love to see you all there.
And this
And
program,
that's co-located as well with the residential designer awards are right after that. So get your applications in. Don't let Steve and Ted hoard them all.
so your program does work on tablets, laptops, everything, right?
Absolutely.
I need to go back and redo my unbuilts now to create color renderings.
Absolutely.
I'm working on it. I'm starting with the Habitat for Humanity stuff and learn my trade.
Well, thanks for taking the time, guys. I appreciate your support of our organization, our
Absolutely.
industry, and helping us succeed.
Likewise. Thanks again.
Thank you all.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have an awesome day.